Hello and welcome to the Belzona podcast, your go-to podcast for all things coatings and engineering. My name is Richard Bywater and I am your host for today. And in today's episode, we are going to be discussing cold bonding. But before we get into the content, I'd just like to remind you that for the latest batch of episodes, we at the Belzona podcast are very interested to get some feedback from you guys, the listeners, or the viewers, depending on where you're watching. So to do that, we've set up an email address. The email address is podcast@belzona.com. So what we want you to do is send in your questions, send in your suggestions for topics you'd like us to cover, or even tell us what you think of the podcast so far. But we're very much looking forward to receiving your feedback and hearing what you think. So on to today's episode. So cold bonding. So as to set the scene, traditional bonding techniques, such as welding, use high temperatures, usually generated from either an electronic arc or the burning of gases to melt materials and effectively fuse them together. Cold bonding can be described as the joining of two parts of materials without the use of this heat element. So in today's episode, we're going to explain or kind of investigate this process. We're going to find out exactly what cold bonding is, why it's important, and also give you an insight into what cold bonding applications look like in a practical sense and in the field to discuss real life applications. So we're going to do this with the help of a couple of guests today. So to take us through the basics, I'd like to introduce our first guest, Mr. Alexander Leith-Ross. Alexander, welcome to the Belzona podcast. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on the podcast.
Absolute pleasure. So for all of the listeners today, could you just introduce yourself, a bit about your role at Belzona and kind of how long you've been with the company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Alexander Leith-Ross. I deal with the business development engineering side.
Yeah.
And specifically the French speaking.
Okay.
That is my superpower.
You speak French? Fantastic.
Exactly. That's great. And then I've been here, I think, just under 18 months, really. So yeah, got to know the products, the brand, the distributors really well.
Fantastic. And you've got a background in engineering and
Yeah. So I studied engineering at uni, mechanical. So it's helped me very well throughout my experiences at Belzona.
Fantastic. So your experience here, your experience in education, you're very qualified to take us through the basics of cold bonding today.
Perfect.
So to kick it off then, at its most basic level, what is cold bonding?
So cold bonding, by definition, it's a term we've sort of coined and created ourselves. Yeah. It's where you're wanting to mate or join two different surfaces and materials together without the use of heat. Right, okay. So if we look at it, through our product range, we'd be using a paste grade material to bond, shall we say, a plate to another plate or to another metallic surface using that paste grade, and therefore no heat is used.
Okay. So it's kind of the mating of two substrates through the use of a structural adhesive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a structural adhesive, of forms.
So what are the main benefits of cold bonding?
So the main benefits of cold bonding, obviously there's no heat. But if we compare it, shall we say, to welding, which is more traditional or conventional repair method. Yeah. Welding is going to use an electrical arc or gases to increase that temperature and then melt the two dissimilar metals, or two similar metals even, to fuse them together and make one. The advantage of cold bonding is that obviously, as you said, we're using an adhesive between those two materials, therefore there's absolutely no need for any heat, and it makes it, quite honestly, the perfect choice in certain environments such as ATEX where you can't have heat.
Excellent. So you don't get any of the problems associated to the metal with the exposure to this heat?
You don't have to relax the weld afterwards. You don't have to heat treat it.
Okay.
All of that is
no risk of ignition source.
No, exactly. They're two inert materials, and the only time the reaction occurs, as we know, is when we put the base and the solidifier together.
Yeah.
So, and even then, it's not going to be creating any sort of high heat that could distort the metal as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so where would you typically, or where in our experience, or in your experience, where would you see this type of method being used?
So, yeah, if we refer back to, using plates, I think that's, for me, a great starting point. We could bond plates to pipes that have got through-wall defects or that are thinning, although, through-wall defects is going to be the better one because we're completely reinitializing the sort of thickness of the substrate over that area.
Yeah.
We could also bond plates to tanks, whether it be as supports or, again, to prevent through-wall leaks. And then you could also use it, on mechanical conveyor systems like screw conveyors. You could try and, typically they use welding to repair the weld plates onto the fins or the flights, shall we say, of the screw conveyor. There, you could actually just bond plates onto it.
Okay, so it's kind of substrate to substrate. It's metal to metal.
Metal to metal, yeah. And you're wanting to regain that initial metal loss.
Okay, excellent. So we're talking about an adhesive bond here.
Yeah.
How strong can this bond be by using this type of application?
Okay, so with all sort of Balzona materials and products, the strength of any bond is going to be down to the surface preparation initially.
Okay, so
there's sort of three factors though.
Okay.
I'll go through each one, but obviously the main one is going to be the surface prep. That's factor one. Then the mechanical bond, and then the chemical bond.
Okay. So if you explain what you mean by surface preparation?
Yeah, so surface preparation, we recommend in all our instructions for use, IFUs, the use of grip blasting, degreasing, achieving a certain level of cleanliness. So Swedish standard SA 2.5.
Yeah.
The American standard of near white finish.
Yeah.
Which is the look of the plates. That's also SSPC SP10.
Okay.
Standards of cleanliness, and then with that we want to achieve a surface profile, as mentioned, of 75 microns, and that's going to give us a roughness. Now, when we look at conventional sort of industry paints, which isn't what our products are aimed at, they will go for 20 to 40 microns, so a very minimal profile. We go for 75 microns, which creates a lot deeper troughs and a rougher surface. And therefore, we can then step in with a mechanical bond, where our products will go and adhere mechanically to the surface by, having to bond over the peaks and into the troughs. Yeah. So any movement is going to be a lot rougher for the coating, and it won't move because it's really stuck in there.
Yeah.
And then the products, themselves come in and do their part, where they react between the base and the solidifier, creating that strong chemical bond. So we rely on the chemistry of these products to therefore adhere together, and also they'll play a part with the substrate.
Yeah.
On top. So yeah.
Excellent.
It's seen our products, as it's seen our products surpass some of the most challenging environments, really. That you see in industry globally.
So in terms of kind of to achieve this mechanical strength bond, to achieve the adequate mechanical bond or even chemical, the substrate needs to be, like you said, kind of rough, clean, and dry.
And dry, firm, also.
Okay, excellent. So let's say hypothetically you achieve that, you reach this kind of standards that you've mentioned there.
Yeah.
Comparable with welding, can you achieve a bond which is equal to, greater, less than?
It's going to depend on the product, majorly. I mean, I've got some figures, that I could rattle off to you. For example, Balzona 1111. So our best seller, our most popular product, our basic product that everything is pretty much built on top of, in terms of chemistry and how it functions, would be 1111.
Yeah, that's our base structural adhesive.
Structural adhesive, whether you're wanting to, bond to rebuild the surface profile of machinery equipment, or just bond a plate, in this instance, cold bonding, or bonding of pads. 1111, 9 out of 10 times is going to be your go-to basic product.
Okay.
So when we look at adhesion, for example, pull-off adhesion, particularly, that's all in our product specification sheets, the PSS. And for 1111, if we're looking at a scenario which will be grit blasted in accordance with ASTM D4541 and the ISO standards 4624, we can achieve about 22.3 megapascals.
Okay.
Now, when we compare that to some of the other products, and there we're going to go to the extreme. So if we look at Belzona 1511, which is the same sort of consistency as Belzona 1111, but it's designed for high temperature environments. So it'll be applied, to rebuild or to bond a plate, and then it'll be coated on top. And that product can go up to 160 degrees if it's got a coating on top in immersion, that is. And when we're looking at adhesion values for those, we're looking at about 35.6 megapascals.
Okay.
So, we've got great adhesion there. But it'll all come down to the surface prep. Yeah. So all of these tests have been done on grit blasted steel, and then particularly for the 1511, that's also been post-cured at 100 degrees.
Yeah.
And the rest, I think, are all cured at 20 degrees, which is roughly room temperature.
So what can Belzona be bonded to?
So Belzona can be bonded to most surfaces, but they've got to be rigid substrates.
Yeah.
More specifically, substrates which are of the equipment or machinery which is suffering from the likes of corrosion, abrasion, chemical attack. And all of this can also apply to different types of substrates. So we're talking mostly metallic on those types, but it can also be done to cementitious or rubber substrates.
Okay. And this isn't a kind of new thing, is it? It's not a new technology. Where's this come from? How long have this type of material has been available?
Yeah, so, as some people might, or most people would know, for those that don't, Belzona has been around since 1952.
Okay.
So we're coming up in February 2022, 70 years worth of experience and know-how.
Yeah.
But the actual cold bonding has been about since roughly the late 1950s.
Yeah.
So we've got, great history and a great track record of success. And from that, we've also expanded our product range.
Yeah.
We've as I said, Belzona 1111 is sort of the base and the foundation of a lot of the Belzona products. And off that, we've developed different types of products in the range, which have stemmed from the same sort of technology, but varying depending on the demands from the customer. Customer need is actually a big driver for a lot of the development of the products that we do.
Okay. So, I was going to ask about that, actually. So you've mentioned Belzona 1111, which, as a recap, is I think you mentioned our base kind of structural adhesive. And then also mentioned the high temperature variant, Belzona 1511.
Yeah.
Are there many variants in terms of the product?
Yeah, there's a great variation. So some scenarios and some environments will require a rigid product.
Yeah.
Like 1111, that's very rigid, like most coatings. Some might need more flexibility and maneuverability because the system requires it. And then we've also got the change in products depending on application scenario. If you need a quick curing, low downtime product, there's a product for that.
Yeah.
If you've got sort of minimal access to the area and minimal surface preparation can be done, we've got surface tolerant products.
Yeah.
And if you need, products that can operate in those high temperatures, again, we've got products that can work better than others for those very demanding and high temperature environments.
Excellent. Okay, so many different small variations on what is a kind of base system. Really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, so how would this kind of translate into practical application? Do you want to give us an example of an application where cold bonding has been used in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I said we've got all this wealth of knowledge and know-how. If we look at the Kias, there's one particularly, especially when I mentioned the bonding of pads.
Yeah. So just for everybody listening, a Kia would be a...
know-how in action.
Okay, so that's the way that I think Belzona captures their...
That's the way, so it's a library that everyone can access, kia.belzona.com.
Yeah.
And they can find any sort of know-how in action or case study, as it's often referred to, about applications which have been done, keywords. For example, cold bonding will bring up several pages if you've got time to sift through to see the success that we've had.
Great.
This particular one I've got in mind was done in Brazil.
Okay.
It dates back to 2003. So again, in that time, it's had plenty of time to work well.
Yeah.
And again, that track record, we're going back to applications with its date, and we always update it for new applications.
Yeah.
But I mentioned bonding of pads earlier, and that particular application had the same sort of thing. So they had an oil sort of storage tank, which the company, after an internal review and change of policy, they decided to get rid of any riveted tank.
Okay.
And rather than sort of scrap it, they decided to repurpose. But to do that, they had to move its position to a different part of the site where it could then be used for water storage.
Okay.
In doing so, we're talking, huge tanks which weigh, 4.5 tons, something like that, more.
Okay. Yeah.
And they basically decided to bond pads to the outer surface up and down the tank.
Yeah.
To keep sort of its structural integrity when you lifted it with a crane.
Yeah. And this is bonding using the structural adhesive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think, if I remember correctly, they went with Balzona 1111.
Okay.
They did some mechanical testing, some FEA. It came out that the product had a factor of safety of 1,170%.
Right. Okay.
Which, great. It's way above what the product needed to be.
Yeah.
But it's great to know that our products can operate at those environments.
Okay.
And I think they bonded 16 pads roughly. They then had a frame that they bolted the pads to, and they used a telescopic crane to then lift it, move it via the crane, and then drop it back down in its new designated position.
Oh my God! So that was quite a weight that was lifted purely on the adhesive strength.
Purely on the adhesive strength, yeah, absolutely.
And that was calculated as well.
That was calculated, yeah. They did all the mathematics behind it. I think they even FEA modelled it just to see how the tank would remove. Because the last thing you want to do, especially if you're pulling from above, is have the lower sides or the walls of the tank just cave in.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, well, I think just for everybody who is interested, we'll make sure that we put a link down to that No Harm Action somewhere. I'm not sure exactly where that will go.
Here.
Down here somewhere. Yeah. Absolutely. And do you know what? It's we have touched on it in previous episodes of the Balzona podcast. I know that it's something that Balzona have done quite a lot of in terms of
lifting with cranes.
Yeah, the PR stunt. I know that we mentioned in the first kind of batch of episodes that we did with the cars being lifted.
Yeah.
So I think the adhesive strength of this type of product and solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can get very, very strong bond, I suppose.
Yeah, go back to episode 1 and if you want to hear about it, there's plenty of information. I found out about it, when I before I joined, I read up on all the history of the Balzona, and that was one that sort of blew me away. I thought, how great is it? We've got two, high-end supercars somewhat, and you're lifting one above the other with the adhesion, purely on the adhesion of a composite paste grade.
Excellent.
Attached to hooks. I mean, that...
Trying to steal my job here, Alex. That's an excellent link. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, again, we'll make sure we link that video. But brilliant. I think... thank you very much for taking us through the basics, Alex.
Thank you very much for your time. It's been great.
Hopefully we'll get you on in the future.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Alex. Really good to hear from you there. Our next guest on today's podcast is Mr. Nico Verloop. Nico is the Balzona affiliated distributor for the Benelux region. So, first off, welcome. Absolute pleasure and privilege to have you on. Have you done something like this before, or?
No, really the first time. Although I'm quite a fan of listening podcasts because we are quite sometimes out, of course, on site with our clients. So really a fan of podcasts since I would say I'm an early adopter, but never have been into a podcast. No.
Okay. Yeah.
So good. Quite excited. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, obviously, like I said, absolute pleasure to have you on here. I think the best way to start is. Could you just give a bit of an introduction to yourself, an introduction to Perspect, and just kind of let the listeners know kind of a bit about yourself.
Well, Nico. I'm a mechanical engineer from a background, also like a business engineer. But I think mechanical is definitely the one more suitable for the Bolzona work.
Yeah.
I think I now run the distributorship for Bolzona for 10 years from my father. So my father is already involved quite some time with Bolzona, and also me also as a very young person, I was already involved with the applications of Bolzona.
Excellent.
So so try to run the team and try to help customers. Perspex is of course the exclusive distributor for the Benelux. Mm-hmm. So that means Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. Since 1982, I had to look up for that. So that is already like 39 years. Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. But
good.
Yeah. So I think that is more or less what we are doing. So yeah.
Excellent. So you've really kind of grown up with Bolzona, kind of being about and stuff.
Yeah. Well, essentially, when I was young, my dad just bought the distributorship from the former owner, of course.
Okay.
So yeah, from a young kid, I'm involved in this business. So I tried to neglect it, and I thought, I never want to do something with Bolzona, but it's
drags you back.
It's like poison. It's come into your blood and never goes away. Something like that. Yeah, I don't know.
Nico, I don't know if we could. Excellent. Good. Okay. So what kind of services do you offer then as the Bolzona distributor for the Benelux?
Well, a large part of our job is, of course, being a distributor is not only supplying materials. I wouldn't say that is the least part. No, I think a big part of our daily work is just to help out our customers with, I think in a very broad sense of maintenance challenges, problems, if you wish. Making advices, making work procedures, helping out on-site, supervise applications to have also the applications in a correct manner executed. Essentially you are more or less like a service provider. So distributorship is not only having materials on stock, that is of course the basis, but I always tell us, we are service providers to asset owners, but also to the contractors who work for the asset owners. Great. So that is a large part of our work.
Okay, so you've got a lot of hands-on experience with the products. It's not just kind of providing them. You're in and out with the actual application as well.
Well, I think, and this is I think the main part of our job. Of course, selling is normally not a problem. It's getting to execute it well and to get the advice right. And the only thing how you can make the best advice for your customer is have experienced how this material works and how to apply it and where it's not suitable or where it is suitable. Because as Bolzona, we come across many situations where essentially the customer doesn't know what to do, and they call Bolzona, hey guys, I have this problem, can you do something? There are always challenges. So whenever you have that practical experience, that makes the added value for us to our customers to also guarantee a good application with the products.
Good.
And I think also if you look to the Bolzona network, I think also this is where we distinguish ourselves compared to other companies. I think like the Bolzona network, I'm in for many years, and so are many other people involved with Bolzona. So that added value of practical experience with really good products. I think that is that is a good thing. And also what I like, to be honest, to be servicing the customers, to help them out with various situations. That is always nice to be in.
Good. So what are the you've mentioned some of the services that you guys provide and typically work on. What are the main industries in the Benelux that you find yourself offering these services to?
Yeah, I always tell it's heavy industry, but of course that is a really broad definition. Yeah, of course within Belgium and the Rotterdam, Amsterdam area in the Netherlands, we have a nice concentrated part of chemical plants and refineries. As well as, of course, big harbors. I would say oil and gas and chemical plants. That I think that is the majority of the customer base that we serve.
Yeah.
But of course, you have like the wastewater plants and stuff like that. That is also, I would say, less. But I would say 70% is oil, gas, and chemical plants oriented. Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Cool. So, obviously, today's episode is on cold bonding. And obviously, you've listened to Alex talk about the theoretical side behind it before. We're really interested to kind of hear your thoughts and your experiences offering cold bonding as a solution to your customers. So, why is cold bonding kind of important to your business, and what does it allow you to offer your customers?
Well, I always say is that maybe a third of what we do involves a part of cold bonding. If you look to regulations on what is happening here in the Netherlands, but also in Belgium, so hot work is, of course, for everybody is definitely a thing. And of course, with working permits, you can work your way around. But that is, I think, here also in our region quite regulated. And you see more and more that due to the fact that the maintenance budgets are essentially decreasing by the fact that oil gas is a little bit under pressure, of course. And that's welding is normally the solution where they don't want to weld currently due to the fact that they don't want to have the downtime. Or by the fact that the regulations are there, so they're not prohibited to do this welding.
Yeah.
And then we offer like the cold bonding in various applications, really in various applications, and that means from storage tanks on the roofs, on the walls, to pipelines, to heat exchangers, to pumps. Deck plates bonding, where we're currently working on. So it's really various in applications.
Okay.
What we definitely see is that when we talk cold bonding, because I really think it's a Belzona kind of definition. No, everybody really don't understand what it means when we say cold bonding. And when we explain is that essentially we are gluing plates. And say gluing, we are in a really traditional market. Gluing, But I think definitely with the customer base that we serve, people are really adopting this kind of method of repairing. I think Belzona is one of the first movers in this business. So we have so many experience and so many examples and reference cases definitely where we're just picking up the business really good. It's for us, it's a really increasing business, this cold bonding.
Excellent. So you mentioned there tank farms. Where would cold bonding fit into the kind of maintenance and repair of tank farm assets?
Well, I think one really adopted application is for instance, repairs on floating roofs. When the floating roofs is quite a challenge, specifically when they have like a through wall defect. So of course we have materials who can stop the leakage, and then with the cold bonding, with surface prep around that, and get your structural adhesive. Normally we will use like a surface tolerant metal paste. So like the Belzona 1161 or the 1212 is a really good product with a fast curing time.
So just when you mention surface tolerant there, what does that mean?
Well, essentially, if you're looking to a live leakage on a floating roof of a storage tank, the surface prep, it's all about ATEX certified zones. So normally, if it's through hole defect, it's zone 0 essentially.
Yeah.
When you just close the hole, then it's zone 1. So on the surface prep, so normally Belzona specifications for surface prep is minimum 75 microns.
Okay.
On surface profile, so roughness of the surface to get a good mechanical adhesion, and the SA2.5 for cleanliness, so nice white metal. And of course, in various repair situations, emergency repair situations, that is not possible. So what Belzona did already in a very early stage was creating surface tolerant products. Essentially, these products still have a good adhesion when you're not able to get your surface prep to that specification level.
Yeah.
And like the 1161 or like a 1212. Even with like oil contaminated surfaces, you still have a really good adhesion.
Yeah.
So yeah, for these applications, really a terrific product to use, where you have that structural bonding.
Yeah.
On the floating roofs, we more in the practical way speaking. Of course, we use like the reinforcement sheet. So you have like a sheet which you apply within the metal paste to get that additional structural effect.
Yeah.
But I'm a mechanical engineer, so I like a nice plate of metal bonded on that hole. But essentially, if you look to the adhesion values of those products, even with the oil contamination involved, and of course that also needs to have a specific application form. So you really need to apply this in a, I would say, flowing way.
Yeah.
You're still looking to like in between 10, 15 megapascal. So that is still quite a high level of adhesion.
Still quite good.
So that is really for us a really practical kind of application, which normally what we will do with the contractors, we teach them how to do this on site at the actual leakage, for instance.
Yeah.
And then after like 2 or 3 times when we did supervision on that, they are able to do that for themselves.
Yeah.
So you have to know what you have to do, of course, but if you know that, then it's quite an easy job to do. Yeah.
Okay, so why does your customers like using a cold bonding alternative against something? For instance, I know we spoke about welding before, for example, especially in a tank farm environment.
Yeah, it's all due to the fact that with your welding, it is all hot work. So whenever you have the leakage there, essentially the notifying bodies just say, hey, you have to repair that immediately or within like 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And whenever you're talking about floating roofs, those are tanks of like 50, 60, 70 meters of diameter.
Yeah.
So these guys are not, downtime is not even an option. So the one thing is they are looking for solutions where they say, we want a quick fix, and it only has to hold for like 2 or 3 weeks. That is normally how people come to us.
Yeah.
And then after 2 or 3 weeks, they look to the repair, and it's still on. So well, then we wait for a year, and after the year, they will look after. We'll just wait. Yeah, still good. So. But the hot work, the downtime, and the easy of application and how you apply the material, I think that are just so beneficial for these guys. That it's essentially it's more. I wouldn't say standard because we still have work to do and get everybody on board. But I know and I see definitely also in our region that it's really picking up.
Yeah.
And knowing also with the bonding and what we do for tank farms, we also do the brackets, for instance, for the fire extinguish pipes, and that not only is the brackets on the roof, but even on the walls, so on the vertical side. And of course, we make calculations of that because whenever we're in a traditional market, everybody wants to see a calculation before going on that. But also there, downtime isn't an option. Yeah. So if it's a leakage or a structural bonding for a bracket for a pipeline, it's all possible.
So you've mentioned downtime there. It's possible to do these applications with this cold bonding method while the tank is full while it's online.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is the main advantage. So they don't have to go down in their process. So business can be run as normal when you solve the problem. And of course, it's all down to good service prep, and that is also quite a challenge. But there are ways to manage that, and a lot of Belzona distributors know that. That is, I think, where our added value is. But it's not a downtime. It's an easy application. You can calculate it. So it's things that really makes it interesting for these asset owners and also for contractors.
Fantastic. Okay, so you mentioned this kind of calculation aspect. Is that what the difference between maybe, let's say, an emergency repair and a permanent repair is?
Yeah, for sure. Emergency repair, and that is also where everybody say it isn't a how do you say that? Emergency repairs, they normally would say, it's for a limited time. So maybe that could be a couple of weeks or maybe a month, maybe a couple of years. But finally, it will be cut out and, for instance, on a pipe or on a piece of roof or a wall, they will cut it out and get new because of the notified bodies. But in case, for instance, for these fire extinguishing pipelines, the notifying body is also signing off these kind of applications, because it's all about with insurance and stuff like that. Yeah. And that is also what I think also where you have with the super rep, you had the podcast with the ISO compliancy. Of course, there isn't really an ISO regulation or an ISO guidelines for that. Yeah. Hopefully it will come, but essentially the calculations are roughly the same. So of course, the bigger the area you make, the bigger the bonded plate you make, the larger the forces you can adopt essentially on those bonding areas. Okay. So we do quite a lot of calculations on those bonding applications.
Brilliant. Okay, so it can be a repair that can be designed. It's quantifiable. You can prove the strength of adhesion and get those kind of figures.
Definitely. And that is also where Belzona is really good. I think in doing whenever you do the supervision or you supervise a job is to get your quality right. So that means also for instance like make sample plates on that. You do like testing before you do the project itself, and also during the project you have several methods where you can check the quality, but also guarantee the quality of those applications. So that is all good. Yeah.
So you can in effect in certain cases work out how long a repair will last.
That is always a tricky one, of course. But and there I always make the comparison with our super rep system. You can also do like a patch repair with the super rep, and essentially you do the same thing there, and it's tested and it is proven. So we have the key thing. What we normally will do is I show reference cases where we did similar jobs. And just to prove that it's still there, or I will say you call this customer that we served, and call him and ask him for his experience with our jobs, with the Belzona jobs, and that is really what helps, because essentially whenever you do the calculation, still the numbers are correct. But for many maintenance managers, it's something new where they're not experienced with. So they also need to build up a kind of feeling what is possible and what is not possible with these kinds of applications. And then, the cross-reference that we have in our region, but also across within the Belzona network. If you know, I always use those know-how in actions. But let me explain that a little bit, because we know what it is. But
there you go.
Within Belzona, of course, we have the Belzona electronic library, and I think that is like a library with massive amount of information. Mm-hmm. And one part of that is indeed the know-how in action part. So normally every distributor supplies a kind of reference cases on a yearly basis. to Belzona on really successful applications.
Yeah.
So that means that as every distributor can look around in that database, and through I think so many years, there are so many know-how in action.
There's a lot, yeah.
And so many examples which really fit all the situations which we have in our and I always use that, and that helps, of course. Of course, calculation is one part, but of course the feeling and the confidence for this maintenance manager to make the decision to go forward with these applications, that also helps with know-how in action and references by other customers that we have. Yeah.
Great. I think it's important to kind of give a nice rounded view of cold bonding as a solution. So kind of with that in mind, obviously there are things to kind of look out for when using this type of system as a solution. But what are the limitations, if you like, or kind of lessons learned that you as a company have come across and is worth kind of mentioning?
Well, the lessons learned is, of course, it's not one fit-size-all solution. That is definitely not. It's really good, but limitations are, in fact, I will say Belzona materials are non-solvent epoxy materials. Especially the metal paste are really, I would say, 80% of the cold bonding will be used the metal paste. Non-solvent, no shrinkage, high adhesion, good initial tag. But of course, it's an epoxy material, so temperature is definitely a thing to look for. So technically speaking, the glass transition temperature is definitely a thing to look after. So whenever an epoxy becomes warmer, essentially it's become more elastic. To a point where it just loses its mechanical strength. And of course, we have really good products in our portfolio, like the 1511, the heat temperature resistance metal paste. It has really high glass transition temperature, like 160 degrees by something like that. So that is massive. So temperature is definitely a thing. And also the temperature ranges. So whenever it becomes, for instance, if you have a process vessel and you have to bond like a doublings plate on that for structural purposes, whenever you have like a temperature range, like in general from ambient to like 160 and that every hour, those are stresses on those bonding areas you definitely have to calculate in. Really important. Also, what you see is impact. For instance, with the brackets, what we did with the fire extinguishers, so really like a hard impact, that is definitely a point of attention, what we normally will do. And also, I think the major fault what is made in these kind of application is that you have a good, decent landing area in wrapping composite repairs kind of terms. So you want to be sure that you have a minimum like a 30-20%, like a 200 mil good solid material to bond on. So anything in between can be, of course that is like degraded material or really higher loss of material. And normally they would just take it to small. Or just with a not decent product. But that is also a fault that is made quite often, to be honest.
But I suppose all of these faults can be the risk can be minimised by speaking to someone like yourself ahead of an application, like a Belzona distributor, anyone in the network, and you can walk maintenance teams and your clients through the procedure and kind of what to look out for and.
Yeah, definitely. And what we also do, and I think also Belzona is really good at that, is that part of the training. It's all, you can have a really good product, as Belzona is, but if you apply it in an incorrect way, it doesn't perform at all. And these are really in the small things. And for instance, also with the bonding, especially with the bonding, to be honest. Like the wetting out, so cutting your brush with like 20 mil hairs and then wetting out the surface area. That is like a typical, everybody who works with Belzona, that is something we just take for, I would say take for granted, it's not the correct word, but it's just a standard for us. Cutting your brushes because you have more power, wetting out the area. But that is more or less like, I will say between 10-15% of your adhesion. You win with that already. And therefore the training and the service and the backup that we provide as a local distributor and as anybody local distributor for Belzona, that helps to have these successful bonding applications. Definitely.
Excellent.
And it's in the small things, of course. It's always in the detail.
Yeah. I completely agree. Nico, just before we wrap up, what we ask all of our guests who come on to talk about particular topics, just before we kind of end, is there a particular application or a particular repair that you've been involved in offering a cold bonding solution that you would like to mention, or any particular application that kind of sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, the one thing, and also on YouTube you have various applications and examples of that, is the deck plate bonding on offshore platforms. Always when company asset owners come to us and say, yeah, we have a deck, we want to weld, but we cannot weld because of all the electrical or the technical installations underneath, because of the fireproofing coating that is underneath. What can you do? And then we say, yeah, we definitely can. We don't weld it. We just bond the plates onto the old deck. 100% adhesion of the roughet, and that is something. That is really cool to do because it's a really nice big area. Also with the injection method, so all the products and all the applications of Belzona comes together into that one application. And the key thing is, essentially, the idea is quite simple, but that makes it that strong. So when you are in a meeting, so like you present that, and we have many presentations on that as Belzona, also in the electronic library, and also on YouTube. I say, just look to the YouTube video like cold bonding deck plates. I said, just search for that, and you will find it. And they come, man, why didn't we think of that ourselves? Say, that is Belzona. We do that for many years, and that is always nice to see. But more or less because all the application techniques comes together. So metal paste around the deck plates to get the initial tag and to level out those plates, and then also the injection with the epoxy materials like a 5811 or something, with an injection tool or with a 2K pump or anything. So I always like these cold bonding applications, and they will solve a really big problem. So that is always nice to see.
Brilliant. What we're going to do as well is, for everyone who's watching on YouTube, I'll make sure to put in the show notes the link. I've got Miles winking at me because I've nailed show notes as a link there. That's the right language. We'll put the link to the video that Nico, that you're referring to there, in the show notes, so everybody can see. Other than that, Nico, I think that kind of brings us to the end. Thank you so much for being a part of today. It's been very, very interesting hearing about your experiences. I hope you've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did. So I would say next time, once again, another subject then.
Yes, we'd love to get you on in the future as well. So
no, I think it's a really good setting also to get the information that we have out of into the world. So and definitely enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Well, you've been a complete professional, and it was a pleasure talking to you. Nico, thank you.
Thank you.
That about wraps us up for today's episode of the podcast. I hope you guys have really, really enjoyed it. As always, please remember to like, follow, or subscribe so you do not miss out on any future Belzona podcast related content. For any more information on anything that we've discussed in today's episode or any other episode of the Belzona podcast, you can head to our website, which is www.belzona.com. I've mentioned it in previous episodes as well, but for this batch of episodes, we are wanting to get a bit more interactive with you guys, the listeners. So to do that, we've set up a dedicated email address. So if you guys have any questions, have any feedback, or If you even have suggestions for future episode content, please do get in touch. Our new email address is podcast@belzona.com. I just want to say thank you very much to today's guests, Mr. Alexander Leaf Ross and Mr. Nico Verloop from Perspex, our Benelux distributor. And I hope you guys have really enjoyed it. Look forward to seeing you soon.